Hello, I'm Ira Spratt, and I'm going to be doing a live podcast show this school holidays at the New South Wales State Library in Sydney. So come along. It's going to be April 17th at 2 p.m. It's going to be an hour-long show in their beautiful auditorium. It should be a lot of fun. I'll be recording probably a Greek myth, and I'll be answering your questions, and there'll be a quiz. It's going to be great. I hope to see you there. If you want to get tickets, it's really affordable. It's only $10 for children, and if you're an adult accompanying the children, it's free. So you can get your tickets through the New South Wales State Library website. You just go to the What's On banner and you go down to April 17th. You'll find it. I'll put a link in the show notes here. All right. Well, I hope to see you there. Hello and welcome to Bedtime Stories with me, R.A. Spratt. Well, it's an absolutely gorgeous day here in Bowral. It's beautiful blue sky I can see outside my window. In the distance, you can faintly hear the sound of a leaf blower, I think it is, because we've had so much rain lately that, it's finally stopped raining. So people are manically out in their gardens trying to straighten them up in time for the Easter long weekend. We get lots of tourists come to Bowral for the Easter long weekend. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's Sydney people long in for cooler weather and they come here because our weather's a little bit cooler than Sydney. Anyway, I have been super, super busy for like a year now because I had 3 books due over about a 6 or 7 month period. I realise I just said 6, 7. I hope you all enjoyed that. But yeah, and my books are all like 40,000 words long. So I just delivered the last of those 3, which was Friday Barnes 14, Nothing to Lose. I delivered that on Monday last week. And I just, on Saturday, finished the edit of Epically Awesome Odyssey. So now I've got those 3 books. So the Romeo and Juliet came out already this year, but I've got the other 2 that will be coming out later in the year. So, it's super busy. Like there's a lot to come, but the hard part is actually writing the books, like editing the books and promoting the books and going to festivals and doing school visits. That's a lot of work too, but it's not as hard as creating something out of nothing. And so, yeah, it's just a huge relief to have those 3 books done because I don't have to deliver another book now until almost this time next year. So, oh my goodness, it's so good after having to deliver 3 books in such a short period of time to know that I've got like well, it's not really a rest, but just not having to do that again for a while. So I'm very excited and happy, and I've been picking up on the things that I haven't done that I should have done. So, because I know a lot of things fall by the wayside along the way when I'm trying to focus on getting my work done. But anyway, finally, I've been able to write this Kraken story. Last time I had an event, lots of kids were saying, can you do a story about the Kraken? And I thought, oh yeah, I'll look up the Kraken. Turns out there wasn't really a story about the Kraken. It was just an idea of the Kraken, but I was able to fashion it into a story. So that's what we're doing today. So I've just got one more thing I need to mention before I get into it. So when this drops, it'll be the 25th of March, 2026. So coming up, I think it's it is. It's the 17th of April, which is a Friday. I'm going to be doing a live podcast show at the New South Wales State Library. Now that's in Sydney on Macquarie Street. It's sort of near the Botanic Gardens, near the Parliament House. It's a really nice place to do a show. They've got a great big theatre that's got 340 seats. The tickets are really cheap. They're like $10 for kids, and even for the adult bringing them, it's free. So it's a really affordable way to come and see me and to see the beautiful State Library. And it's a fun thing to do in the holidays if you're looking for something to do. If you're looking to have a day up in Sydney, if it was me, I'd probably get there early and maybe go to the art gallery and then have a picnic in the Botanic Gardens, then come and see my 2:00 show at the State Library, and then I'd probably go to one of the fine chocolate shops in town like Hague's or Gillian or something like that. Anyway, that's how I'd spend my day in the holidays if I was you coming to see me, but I'm me being me, so I won't see me. That would be weird. Anyway, I digress. So come and do that. If you want to book a ticket, go to the New South Wales State Library's website and click on the banner that says What's On or I think it's What's On at the State Library. All right, let's just get into this Kraken story now. I've been rabbiting on for too long. Okay, so here we go. The Legend of the Kraken, as told by Nanny Piggins. Nanny Piggins was not often called down to the school, mainly because the headmaster was terrified of her. But on this particular occasion, she got a call from the school secretary saying she needed to come down to the school immediately. "What is it this time?" Nanny Piggins demanded as she kicked in the headmaster's door, her brother Boris close behind her. "The Young and the Irritable is on in 45 minutes. I will be very annoyed if I miss it because of some trivial matter. If one of the children has accidentally set fire to a building, just put the fire out. I don't see why you need to complain to me about it." "I'll have you know that Michael has claimed that a dog ate his homework," accused the principal. Nanny Piggins turned to look at Michael. He was sitting in a chair opposite the principal's desk and sheepishly staring at his own feet. "Michael Green, is this true?" asked Nanny Piggins. "How could you? It's cruel to inflict a toxic substance on a poor, innocent animal. What sort of homework was it?" "Maths," confessed Michael. Nanny Piggins gasped. "Oh, but that's the most awful type of all. Is the dog all right? I do hope you immediately rush the poor animal to a veterinary hospital. It may need emergency surgery to remove the mathematics from its intestines." "You're missing the point," said the headmaster. "The point is not the dog. The point is that Michael has lied." "He has?" asked Nanny Piggins. "Well, I suppose that makes sense. How else would he persuade the dog to eat the homework without bending the truth a little bit?" "No, he lied to me," said the headmaster. "Everybody knows that 'a dog ate my homework' is a cliché. It's what you say when you didn't do your homework." "Is it?" said Nanny Piggins. "Yes, everyone knows that," said the headmaster. "So you're saying that humans are so unimaginative in their lying that they all choose the same lie?" asked Nanny Piggins. "We're not here to discuss anthropology and the nature of the human mind," said the headmaster. "We're here to discuss Michael's falsehood." "So you're saying you're angry because he didn't torture a dog?" asked Nanny Piggins. "Are you trying to make me lose my temper?" asked the headmaster. "Oh no," said Nanny Piggins. "It's so easy to make you lose your temper. If I actually tried, I could do it very quickly indeed. Look, if you'd like me to get to the bottom of this, perhaps I could speak to Michael in private." "Fine," said the headmaster, folding his arms in a huff. Nanny Piggins raised her eyebrows. "Well?" "What?" asked the headmaster. "You need to step outside," said Nanny Piggins. "But it's my office!" exclaimed the headmaster. "Oh, please," said Nanny Piggins. "It's not like you do any work in here. I know as soon as I leave you'll just play video games on your computer and eat the chocolate biscuits you've got hidden down the back of the third drawer down on the left." "How did you know that?" asked the headmaster. "Have you searched my office?" "No," said Michael. "Nanny Piggins just has a very accomplished nose." "It's true," said Nanny Piggins. She sniffed the air. "For example, I can tell that the ladies in the school canteen have just taken a batch of chocolate chip cookies out of the oven. Why don't you go over there and pretend you need to inspect the kitchen sink for mould and see if they give you one to make you go away?" "Fine," grumbled the headmaster. He never liked conceding to one of Nanny Piggins' suggestions, but he did love the canteen's chocolate chip cookies, and he could not resist. As soon as the headmaster left the office, Nanny Piggins was on her trotters and hurrying to the other side of the desk. In just seconds, she'd jimmied open the lock on the third drawer down and had the biscuit tin in her trotters. She offered one to Michael, stuck 3 in her own mouth, and got down to the matter at hand. "So what is this about you lying?" asked Nanny Piggins. "It doesn't sound like you." "I didn't lie," said Michael, helping himself to another one of the headmaster's chocolate biscuits. "I said my homework had been consumed when I bumped into Mad Dog on the way to school." "A mad dog?" said Nanny Piggins. "Mad angry or mad mentally ill?" "No, not that type of mad, or that type of dog," said Michael. "I bumped into Mad Dog, the one-armed tree lopper." "Oh, you mean that marvellous man with the chainsaw that can cut down anything in minutes?" asked Nanny Piggins. "Yeah, that's him," said Michael. "He is so impressive to watch," marvelled Nanny Piggins. "Watching a 2-armed person climb up a tree and prune the branches with a chainsaw is exciting enough, but watching a man with 1 arm dangling from ropes as he lops off branches is very exciting indeed. He is an amazing athlete." "Well, I always stop and say hello to him if I see him on the way to school," said Michael. "Of course," said Nanny Piggins. "It's important to be respectful to great artists. That man is so gifted he would make a great circus performer. If the ringmaster ever found out about him, he'd be kidnapped in the blink of an eye." So did you make Mad Dog eat your homework? I know he is mad, but surely not that mad. No, I never said my homework was eaten, explained Michael. Mad Dog let me put it in his wood chipper, and the wood chipper ate it up in half a second. I figured the big metal teeth could shred tree branches, so I wanted to see what it would do to my homework. What did it do? Asked Boris. It shredded it in seconds, and all the little bits flew out of the other side. Brilliant, said Nanny Piggins. It was, said Michael. I wanted to throw in my maths textbook next, but Derek grabbed it out of my hands before I could throw it in and made me keep walking. Derek is a good boy, said Nanny Piggins. He was trying to do the right thing. It would have been awful if I'd had to buy you another textbook and waste perfectly good cash money that could have been spent on chocolate. I'm sorry, Nanny Piggins, said Michael. There's no need to apologise, my dear boy, said Nanny Piggins. Just remember next time you throw your homework into a giant destructive appliance, you need to come up with a better excuse. What do you mean? Asked Michael. Don't say, a dog ate my homework, said Nanny Piggins. Say something more imaginative. Say, a kraken ate my homework. What's a kraken? Asked Michael. Well, that depends on who you listen to, said Nanny Piggins. Most people believe that a kraken is a terrible sea monster that looks like a squid if a squid was as big as a mountain. It lunges up out of the waves of the North Sea, shrieking a fearsome cry, then grabs ships and pulls them down into the ocean to feast on the poor souls aboard. Oh, said Michael. But that's just an old Viking tale, said Nanny Piggins. Oh, what's the truth? Asked Michael. Oh, well, if I'm going to tell you that story, said Nanny Piggins, I'd better fetch Derek and Samantha. It would be unfair for them to miss out. So, after Nanny Piggins made an announcement over the school's public address system that Derek and Samantha had to report to the headmaster's office because there was a worldwide shortage of chocolate-infused blood, and since they had the highest chocolate content in their diet of any children in the world, they were urgently needed to save lives. As soon as they stepped into the office, Nanny Piggins slammed the door shut behind them. And then she locked it. Well, she couldn't actually lock it because she'd broken the lock when she'd burst into the room in the first place. So instead, she tipped the headmaster's desk onto its side and pushed it up against the door to act as a barricade in case the headmaster tried to return. What's going on? Asked Derek. I'm about to tell Michael the story of the Kraken, the dreaded monster of Norse folklore, and I didn't want you to miss out. You weren't learning anything important in class, were you? Oh, we were about to start a lesson on algebra, said Samantha. Oh, thank goodness I was able to get you out of there in time, said Nanny Piggins. So the children gathered round, helped themselves to several chocolate biscuits from the headmaster's tin, and Nanny Piggins began her tale. It all started 1,000 years ago, back in the ancient Viking story days. I thought you were going to tell us a story about the Kraken, said Derek. I am, said Nanny Piggins. The Kraken was a terrifying monster that tormented Vikings. I thought Vikings were terrifying tormentors, said Samantha. Oh, they were, said Nanny Piggins. So that just goes to show how extra especially terrifying the Kraken was, that she terrified extra especially terrifying seafaring warriors. Now, to start, you have to understand a bit about the geography of the situation. Vikings came from Scandinavia. So that's what we call today Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Iceland. They were called Norsemen or Normans because they came from up north. Oh, you mean they came from near the North Pole? Asked Boris. Were they friends with Santa? I highly doubt it, said Nanny Piggins. Vikings were very naughty. Even Santa, who can turn a blind eye to just about anything, would have had a hard time overlooking their antics. Well, what did they do that was so bad? Asked Michael. Well, the Vikings would set sail from their cold northern countries and go over to other countries and bash everybody up, then steal all their things and sail back home to their families. It's called pillaging, which is when you make it look like you're having a war, but really it's just an excuse to rob everyone's houses. You're very knowledgeable about this, Nanny Piggins, observed Michael. Yes, well, said Nanny Piggins, it just so happens that one of my dear relatives was married to a Viking. Oh, really, said Derek. What a surprise, said Michael. Yes, she was my great-great-great times 251 great's cousin, Gudrun Piggins. And she was a pig? Asked Derek. And a woman? Asked Samantha. Yes, said Nanny Piggins. And was she staggeringly beautiful? Asked Michael. Of course, said Nanny Piggins. And she was married to the most bloodthirsty, vicious Viking king of all time, the dread Eric Bloodsocks. Bloodsocks, said Derek. I know, said Nanny Piggins. I can only assume the name sounded more terrifying in ancient Norse. It was a very happy marriage between Gudrun and Eric. Eric would spend weeks at a time away at sea, pillaging, which was great for Gudrun because it meant she could pursue her passion for science. Science, said Michael. I didn't see that coming. Wait for it, said Derek. Was it the science of cake baking, perhaps? No, don't be ridiculous, said Nanny Piggins. Gudrun was the world's leading expert in the science of licorice. Right, gotcha, said Derek. Oh, I don't like licorice, said Michael. I know, it's not my favourite either, said Nanny Piggins, but Scandinavians love the stuff. They actually dip it in salt to make it taste even more licoricey. So Gudrun was busy exploring the possibilities of licorice cuisine, licorice cake, licorice biscuits, licorice covered in chocolate. That was actually quite a breakthrough. It brought her one step closer to her greatest discovery, chocolate-covered licorice, where the licorice is replaced with more chocolate. Well, wouldn't that just be chocolate covered with chocolate? Asked Samantha. Yes, and it was so much better, said Nanny Piggins. So Gudrun worked away in her lab while Eric went off on his business trips. You mean pillaging trips, said Derek. Exactly, that was his business, said Nanny Piggins. Most importantly, Eric would bring back all the scientific supplies he stole. Scientific supplies, said Samantha. Yes, licorice ingredients, explained Nanny Piggins. Gudrun was a dedicated scientist, so she needed lots of licorice root, gum arabic, molasses, and gelatin to explore her research. This arrangement worked very well until one day, when Eric returned from a voyage with nothing. Nothing, said Michael. Absolutely nothing. He and his crew staggered up the beach with no stolen property at all. They didn't even have their ship anymore. How did they lose a whole ship? Asked Michael. Well, that's what Cousin Gudrun wanted to know, said Nanny Piggins. Eric, where are all the ingredients you promised to pick up for me? Gudrun asked. I promise I got you everything you asked for, said Eric. He may have been the most ferocious Viking of his time, but Gudrun was even more terrifying in her own way. It's wise to be wary of a woman who's a master of creating black substances. But we lost them on the voyage home. How'd you lose a whole shipload of ingredients? Asked Gudrun. We were attacked, said Eric. By a rival licorice researcher? Asked Gudrun. No, we were attacked by the Kraken. What on earth is the Kraken? It's a horrifying giant monster from the ocean depths. It rose up out of the waves and wrapped its terrible tentacles around our ship with its suction cups, then sucked the whole ship down to the bottom of the sea to feast on the contents. What are all the men doing here if the ship was sucked down in a whirlpool to the depths of the ocean floor? Asked Gudrun. Well, the monster spat them back out, said Eric. Fair enough, said Gudrun. The monster could probably taste how rarely they bathed. We had to swim the rest of the way home, said Eric. Eric, that is not a very believable story, said Gudrun. But it's true, he protested. Really? Just like last week when you told me you saw Thor ride past in a cart pulled by screaming goats? Asked Gudrun. Well, that was true too, said Eric. And the week before when you said you landed on an island, built a campfire, only for the island to shoot water in your face, and you realised it wasn't an island, it was a giant whale, and you had to run back to your ship before it ate you. Yes, also true, said Eric. These are the ancient Norse story days. Crazy stuff happens. Fine, said Gudrun. Then I'm going to give this Kraken a piece of my mind. What are you going to do? Asked Eric. Fetch me my boat. I'm going out to sea. But it'll kill you, said Eric. It's going to take more than a giant 10-tentacled monster to kill me, said Gudrun. It'll eat your ship and you'll have to swim all the way back, warned Eric. Fine, said Gudrun. Since I don't have any ingredients, I don't have anything else to do this afternoon. So Gudrun pushed her little boat out into the water, raised the sail, and, ignoring the cries of despair from her husband on the beach behind her, sailed out into the North Sea. She sailed for 2 days and 2 nights and was not attacked by any monsters at all. I'm beginning to think that Eric made this whole thing up, said Gudrun. She was reduced to talking to herself because, unlike Disney movies, there were no talking animals nearby for her to hold a conversation with. Just then, the water around the boat started to bubble, and then it rippled, and then there was a glug, and there were big, rippling waves beginning to appear. If she had been made of less stern stuff, Gudrun might have been afraid. But her diet was 90% licorice, so she feared nothing. Gudrun rose to her feet, brandishing her weapon of choice. "A sword?" asked Derek. "An axe?" asked Michael. "A slice of cake?" asked Samantha. "No, although you're closer," said Nanny Piggins. Gudrun held aloft her trusty wooden spoon. Suddenly, two great big arms flopped over the side of the boat. Gudrun was being attacked by the Kraken. She was just about to whack the Kraken really hard with her wooden spoon when the Kraken drew its head out of the water. "Oh no!" whimpered Boris. And Gudrun recognised it. "Karen, is that you?" asked Gudrun. For the Kraken was none other than Karen Piggins, my great-great-great times 215 greats aunt. "Another Piggins!" exclaimed Michael. "So she was staggeringly beautiful?" asked Derek. "Naturally," said Nanny Piggins. "But not a pig?" asked Samantha. "Oh, yes, she was a pig," said Nanny Piggins. "But drawings of Krakens always make them look like enormous squids, with bodies the size of double-decker buses, tentacles the length of a football field, and great big eyes that are as big as a bathtub." "Yes, you see, that's because the Kraken only ever attacked Vikings," said Nanny Piggins. "And Vikings were men who prided themselves on their bravery and ferociousness. They would never admit to being attacked by a regular-sized pig in a squid costume, not even to themselves." "But Karen, why are you dressed up like a squid?" Gudrun asked. "Oh, it's a disguise," explained Karen. "My father says it's unladylike to attack Viking ships. Right now he thinks I'm on a picnic at the beach." "Really? Well, I've got a bone to pick with you. While it's always a pleasure to see family," said Gudrun, "I am a bit cross because you ate my husband's ship." "No, I didn't," said Karen. "I would never eat a Viking ship. They're not terribly clean. I was just after a snack, but the men panicked. Then one of them tried to cut my head off with a battle axe. So naturally I ducked." "Naturally," agreed Gudrun. "But he swung so hard he couldn't control the axe, and it smashed through the hull of the boat." "So he sunk his boat himself?" asked Gudrun. "Yes," said Karen. "Well, that does sound like a Viking," conceded Gudrun. "It's their motto. When in doubt, hit it with a battle axe." Then they all got in a fight with each other about whose fault it was. I barely had time to eat everything on board before the ship went down. "Well, this is a lot more believable than what Eric told me," said Gudrun. "You're not going to tell anyone I'm out here pretending to be a Kraken, are you?" asked Karen. "No, it's probably for the best," said Gudrun. "If the men think you're out here destroying ships, it'll stop them dilly-dallying and get them to come home straight away." "I'll tell you what, would you like me to attack you?" asked Karen. "Why would I want that?" asked Gudrun. "Well, you could come back to my place and have a nice week at the beach," said Karen. "Then you could swim home and say you were attacked by the Kraken and were trapped at the bottom of the ocean until I spat you back out." "You know, that sounds really nice," said Gudrun. "I was supposed to clean the oven this week." And so that is what they did. Gudrun had a lovely vacation with her cousin. Then she went home and pretended that the Kraken was a really fearsome monster. And people have been believing that ever since. The end. Time for bed. Just then, there was a loud pounding at the door. "Ah!" cried Boris. "It's the Kraken!" "No, it's not," said Nanny Piggins. "It's something far worse. It's the headmaster." "Let me in, Piggins! Let me in! It's my own office! You better not be eating my chocolate biscuits in there!" "Quick, children, out the window, and don't forget to bring his tin of biscuits. And when he asks what happens tomorrow, tell him a land-dwelling Kraken sucked you out through the window and held you hostage at the bottom of the sea." "But he'll never believe that," said Derek. "But he's also got no way of proving it wasn't true." The end. Time for bed. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. I hope you liked that story. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next week. I've been enjoying doing the Norse myths, but I might swing back to a Greek myth. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for now. Until next time, goodbye. Hello, it's me again. If you enjoyed listening to Bedtime Stories with R.A. Spratt, it would be really helpful if you could like, subscribe, follow, and or review the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to now. Every little one of those digital affirmations helps, and the bigger this podcast gets, the more I can justify procrastinating from my real job to keep bringing these stories to you. Thank you.